join me in welcoming the incredible Dan Dominguez.
Thank you so much, Gigi. And let's see how I do. I'm sharing my screen here. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. I get to, this is a group that I definitely didn't want to follow anybody else. So I said, you know what, since I'm helping to coordinate, I'm going to go first. What we're going to do today is we're going to dive into what it means to embrace your neurodivergent edge, how self-awareness fuels resilient leadership. You're in the right room today if you've ever felt like you're different than everyone else. And when you try to adapt to their norm, it's a struggle. Have you ever felt that? For a long time, I thought I was too much, too intense, too all over the place, always pushing back or asking, why are we doing things this way? I assumed I had to dial that part of me down to be successful. Well, I'm here to tell you, it doesn't have to be that way. Let me tell you a little bit about me. I believe that success happens when I make a positive impact in the lives of others. That's not just a nice phrase. It is the way that I'm wired. And understanding that changed everything for me. So today I'm going to share a couple of stories that taught me that same lesson. The way my brain works, the parts that I used to hide, are exactly what make me strong and resilient as a leader. So let's start with one of those stories. When I first entered the military, I thought my job was to blend in, follow the rules, fit the mold. One mission changed that. We are training to set up fuel tankers at the forward edge of the battle area. We called it refuel on the move. Our job was to keep the tanks and the heavy equipment fueled and moving, but we had to do it just outside of enemy fire. It was one of the most dangerous and vulnerable positions to be in. The first time we ran the setup, it took us 3 hours. 3 hours of exposure, 3 hours of dragging hoses, checking connections, waiting on parts, and trying to coordinate under pressure. Everyone said that, hey, that's just the way it's done. But I couldn't, right? My brain doesn't work that way. And honestly, I felt like we were gambling with our lives, mine and the lives of the troops that I was responsible for. I started asking questions. Why are we doing it this way? What if we tried that? Why not do it entirely different? To be honest, some people thought I was crazy, and you can imagine why, right? But we made it fun. We broke the platoon into 3 squads. One squad was in charge of throwing the hoses out of the supply trucks. They just threw them out. Another squad caught them, and then they connected them to the fuel trucks. And another squad went around and inspected the connections. We timed it, and we turned it into a competition. And you know what happens when you turn something into a competition. We rewarded the winners with time off and special meals. We challenged every single assumption about the way we were doing it. And we practiced this new way of doing it over and over and over. And guess what? Eventually, we were able to set up that fuel line in 5 minutes. From 3 hours to 5 minutes. Just by looking at it differently, by turning it into fun and making it a competition. What others saw as chaos or impossibility, my brain saw as an opportunity. That was the first time I glimpsed it. This wiring that I'd always tried to hide, it wasn't a liability. It was my edge. Now, let's fast forward 25 years later. I'm now the national sales director for a global healthcare company. We're deep in the fourth quarter and way behind on a $500 million quota. People are stressed. People are starting to whisper about layoffs. And I'm doing the math in my head. If I don't pull this off, if we don't pull it off, people on my team could lose their jobs. More importantly, I could lose my job. And I've got a family to support. It's not just numbers at this point. It is people's lives, just like it was in the military. So I brought the team together. I pulled in all my regional managers, and I could have given them a lecture. But you know what I did? I listened. I looked at how everybody was ideating. I saw how they ticked, and I made a decision. Guess what, guys? No more one-size-fits-all sales strategy. We leaned into what everybody had as a strength, what made them unique, their instincts, their wiring. And guess what? We did it. It worked. That year, we made 50% of our quota in the last 90 days of the year. And it wasn't a traditional playbook. It was a why not moment if I ever had one. And once again, what was it that made the difference? It was my out of the box thinking, unconventional ideas, the obsession with unlocking potential in other people. My ability to see the system and shift it was not a liability. It was the key. We closed 50% of our annual quota in 90 days. We beat quota by 172,000. I mean, that is nothing on $500 million, right? 172,000. I remember the last deal came in on the last business day of the year. So what do those stories have in common? On the surface, they sound like two completely different stories, right? Combat zone versus conference rooms. But the truth is, they're the exact same story. The common denominator, me. And more specifically, my operating system. Once I discovered how I operated, I realized I wasn't succeeding in spite of how I'm wired. I was succeeding because of it. My ability to challenge assumptions, spot possibilities where others saw roadblocks, and ignite action in other people, that was not an accident. It was repeatable. It was me. That same wiring, my neurodivergent edge, has always been there. I just didn't know how to name it or how to harness it until a few years ago. So let me tell you a little bit about that. What changed everything for me was a simple shift. I just stopped fighting how I'm wired and started recognizing it, accepting it, and even, God forbid, celebrating it. That's the simple framework I now use with every single leader I work with, especially neurodivergent leaders who have spent their entire lives trying to fix themselves instead of understanding how they're built. So here's what it looked like for me. I said it at the beginning. I believe success happens when I contribute to the success of others. Now, the way I do that is by challenging the norm and finding a different way. And ultimately, what I bring is the ability to make sense of complexity and turn it into something people can act on. That's just my operating system. And once I could see it clearly, I realized I had been driving every breakthrough that I've ever had, from the battlefield to the boardroom. Now, I've also seen this with others. One of my clients, a high school principal, realized she kept getting frustrated with her staff because they didn't operate the way she did. But after discovering her operating system, she stopped expecting them to think like her. And instead, she started leading in a way that brought out their strengths. And everything shifted from their communication to their team culture. So, what would be possible if you could do this for yourself, for your team, for your organization? How much better could your team be? I've thought, if the thought of continuing to work, doing what you do without knowing this about yourself and the people around you is unacceptable, if you want to not just learn about self-awareness, but actually take the first step to help you attain it for yourself and for the people around you, then I'm going to invite you to a free event on July 23rd at 2 p.m. Eastern for a free session. It's called Discover Your Difference, a live self-awareness discovery for neurodivergent leaders. We're going to walk through the steps that I take my CEO and founder clients through and let you experience it live. It's raw. It's a real look at how your wiring can become your launch pad to transformation. And if you sign up today, one of you will win a free one-on-one session with me, a $500 value. But whether you're selected for that or not, you're going to still walk away with a deeper understanding of how to leverage your own edge. Because the truth is, and you got to remember this, you don't need fixing. You need unlocking. So scan the QR code or visit the link in the tab and register. If you're watching the replay, you can still attend. Just know that the giveaway is for those who sign up today. With that, I turn it back over to you, Gigi, and thank you so much for being here today. I look forward to seeing you all on July 23rd.